and it was built in a robust fashion. As you can see here, here's one of the major engineering items on the line that exists today is the bridge over the South Fork of Catawba River, which you can see if you go along Interstate 85 and look upriver. 460 feet long and 6 feet above the water, and of course $6,300. That's kind of interesting. But what's even more amazing than that is the construction on that bridge began in November of 1911, and by March of 1912 it was in service. So they knew how to do things, and the amazing, of course, I'm sure they had the environmental impact studies finished long before that. But the amazing thing is the bridge is really in excellent condition. The concrete work is as though it was poured yesterday. It is truly a remarkable, that they built the railroad so very well, and thankfully so. Mr. Duke, pretty smart guy, he said, these mill owners, if they acquire some stock in this railroad company, they probably want to ship on their own railroad, and that's what he did. So they based the percentage of ownership on the number of spindles in production. And of course, most railroads, like the Carolina Northwestern that runs today, it used to run down to Columbia and come through Gastonia, was referred to as the can't and never will. Or there's some other terminologies that refer to that won't repeat this next company. But the P&N was lovingly known as the poor and needy, or the po and needy, but it was anything but. Freight business was booming. This is a picture of uptown Charlotte, right where the ballpark is intended to go now, the baseball park. And of course, again, with that mill ownership aspect and the relationship between Mr. Duke and Mr. Lee and the textile industry, there was roughly a mill to the mile. And I want you to just kind of look. Now, this is just Catawba River coming west geographically, but south track direction. And what I want to point out to you is, and you'll recognize a lot of these names, obviously, in here. The point is that all of these plants had rail service at one time. And those plant sites can once again have rail service. Let me come further west from Lowell, and again, we can see the density of traffic that existed on the line. Now, Mr. Duke and Mr. Lee, being visionaries and trying to help the Piedmont region, and Chris, hold your ear shut just for a moment on this one. Mr. Duke and Mr. Lee wanted to provide for elimination of a problem in the Charlotte marketplace, and that was, at that time, the old Southern Railway Company tended to monopolize the market and dictate what prices would be paid by customers shipping on the Southern. So Mr. Duke said, well, maybe, especially after the meeting, reportedly in New York, where the J.P. Morgan, who was the controlling interest in the Southern Railway at the time, made some disparaging comments about Mr. Duke's wife and the fact she was not qualified to be in high society. And so Mr. Duke took that as a challenge and said, well, we'll just give you a little competition in Piedmont, thank you very much. And so they intended to run the line from Winston all the way down towards Atlanta. And unfortunately, Mr. Morgan had better friends at Interstate Commerce Commission at the time, and they thwarted those attempts. So the P&N did actually have a Greenville, Spartanburg, and Anderson railway that they later merged in with the Piedmont Traction Company to totally form what was known as the Piedmont and Northern Railway. But the point was that they never did connect the North Carolina and South Carolina divisions. So the extension of the line from Gastonia past Kings Mountain and on down to Greenville, Spartanburg, and Anderson never took place, unfortunately. In addition to a robust freight business, the ability to get out of a horse and buggy instead of fording 2 rivers to go from Gaston County over to Charlotte, it must have been like a rocket ship. In 1912, you could get on a quiet, electrified railway and be in Charlotte from Gastonia 55 minutes later. So it was really a remarkable thing at the time. And they had quite a robust passenger business. Here is an example of a timetable from, I believe this is 1945. And you'll notice this is the North Carolina division that I've highlighted here. Here's Gastonia. And you can see that it was a 55-minute ride with 10 station stops between Gastonia and uptown Charlotte. And keeping in mind, that went right into Mint and 4th Street in uptown Charlotte. So it was a great service at that time. And somebody was telling me this morning about riding it frequently from Charlotte out to Ranelagh. So that obviously was an important part of the business model. Here's an example. This is in front of Tony's Ice Cream. We're looking east on Franklin Street. City Garage is over there on the right-hand side, for those of you that remember that. That building still exists today. We turn now and look towards west, towards along Franklin Street, and you'll see what's happening here is the mainline train from Charlotte is going up to the station, and the trolley, which ran local service between the Low-Ray Mill and Groves, was obviously waiting there to let the mainline train pass, so then they could continue on their journey towards Groves. And that trolley, here's another photo of it, that service was suspended in 1948 because at that time they took the tracks off Franklin Street, and so that eliminated that ability to serve out to the Low-Ray Mill. This is on Mint Street in Charlotte. This car is just looking at what today, the tall building in the background would be where the Bank of America Stadium is located, just again to orient you. So this car is departing for Gastonia. This is the same car coming through Belmont Junction. You'll see the track just to the right of the frame is the line, the branch line that was built in 1916 that accessed into Belmont. That service, because of the competitions from highway vehicles, the service was diminishing, and by 1951 it was felt it was no longer profitable. So they went to an all-freight operation after that point in time. And speaking of freight, here's one of the freights departing Gastonia for Charlotte. You'll notice the title, the caption down there at the bottom of this. This is the Piedmont Northern Railways Company magazine, Gastonia, Mecca for Industry, May of 1957. You'll notice in the frame, if you can see this is Broad Street here. Here's Franklin. Here's where the shrimp boat sits today, and here's the P&N depot, the passenger depot, and then there was also a freight depot up here, and they had a connection with the Carolina Northwestern, and then here was the Southern Railway, which was originally the Atlanta and Charlotte Airline Railroad, which is why you have Airline Avenue. And of course, the P&N was always, being a locally based company, was always interested in developing the economy in the region. So we're not at cross purposes because we still have the same philosophy today. A healthy railroad is a healthy Gaston County. And we certainly would want to facilitate that growth.